Hello designers, welcome back to my YouTube channel Bimsy Styling. My name is Abimbola. In this tutorial video, I'm going to be showing you how to cut and sew a well-structured gong sleeve. Just exactly what we have on the screen. So guys, if you are here to subscribe to my YouTube channel, kindly do so now. Show some love and support. Kindly hit on the subscribe button now and subscribe to this channel. Thank you for doing that. Now let's get into today's tutorial. So for this particular sleeve design, we need to work with a short sleeve. Now the short sleeve depends on the length that you want. So if you have a pattern already for your short sleeve, you can actually make use of that. But then I'll be taking us through the process from start to finish. So the first point I marked, which is 3.5, is actually the cap height. And then I went ahead to mark 13 inches, which will be the length for my sleeve. So I'll go ahead now to rule out my cap height, which is 3.5, and also draw a straight line on my sleeve length, which is the 13 inches. Now, like I said, this length depends on what you want, where you want the sleeve to get to. So it depends. So for me, I'm making use of 13 inches. You could use something shorter than that length. You could do 10 inches, you could do 11 inches, so it all depends on you. So now that I have these 2 points marked, I'll go ahead now. I'll go ahead now to take my armhole depth, which is 8.5. So I'll be taking this 8.5 armhole depth on the cap height, which was marked. So now that I've marked that point with my straight ruler, I'll connect from that 8.5 to the cap head, which is the tip of my pattern paper. I'll connect with a straight ruler. So now the next thing to do after this, go ahead and locate the midpoint for this line you just drew. Go ahead and locate the midpoint and then mark that point. Now I'll further divide this straight line into 4 parts. So I'll divide the first half into another half, and then I'll divide the other half into another equal half. So like I said earlier, if you already have a short sleeve pattern, you can work with that. I'm just going through all of this process for the sake of people who might not know how to go about this, maybe beginners that actually don't know how to go about this, because this tutorial is beginners friendly. It's actually easy to achieve. So at the center of the first half, I went up by half an inch, and at the other um, point on the other half, I went down by half an inch. So from the tip of my pattern paper, that's the cap head, I'll go ahead and connect from that point, passing through the half an inch to the midpoint of the line. And also for the other side, I'll go ahead and flip over my curved ruler and connect from the midpoint, passing through the half an inch below, and then connecting it to the hammer depth, which was marked on the straight line. So for the people who can draft a sleeve already, please do well to skip this part. Now on my sleeve length, that's the sleeve length, the 13 inches, which was marked, I'll go ahead and take my round sleeve measurement at that point, and then I will mark it on the line. And then I'll go ahead to connect my round sleeve back to the cap height. And within a space of 2 to 3 minutes, we are done with this sleeve. Go ahead now and cut out the sleeve pattern exactly the way it was drafted. So I have my short sleeve ready. So I'll be doing these drafts on the lining for the fabric. So what we have here is the lining, and I went ahead to draw a straight line which will serve as my starting point for the sleeve. And also I folded this lining into 4, which is for the two sleeves. We'll be cutting the two sleeves together. So now what I'll do next is, from the starting point line, from that line, I'll come down by 4 inches from the line, and I'll mark that point and draw out my straight line at the 4 inches mark. Now, the next thing I will do is, on the folded parts of my lining, on the folded parts, that's the part we placed on fold, not the part that is opened, the part placed on fold. I will mark 5 inches from that part, and I'll mark it straight down to the tip of the lining, and then draw out my straight line I used 5 inches in this case. You can use 6 inches, you can use 7 inches. But for me, I used 5 inches because of the lining I'm working with. So here is the sleeve that we drafted earlier. So I'll place my sleeve just the way you're seeing it on the screen. I'll go ahead and place my sleeve and then pin it down. Now I'll go ahead and measure what I have on that part, which is the armhole depth, 8.5 inches. And then I will repeat the same 8.5 inches at the tip of my sleeve, that's at the hem of my sleeve. Then I'll connect from that point at the upper part on the cap height. I'll connect it straight down to the sleeve um, length. So I'll connect it and then draw out my straight line. Now I'll go ahead and trace out my curved shape for the sleeve. I'll trace it out because I'm going to remove this sleeve, this pattern paper on the lining. So I'll go ahead and trace that out. Then I'll remove my pattern paper, and then this is what we have. So now from the starting point line that we earlier marked, I'll connect it into my armhole curve like that. I'll blend it in like that. So now remember that our original sleeve, which was drafted, is 13 inches, and that is what I'm reconfirming there. So I'll go ahead now, and on the other side I'll go up by 10 inches. So we have 10 inches on this side and 13 inches on the other side, just to shape out the curve for the sleeve. Now this depends on you. You can go ahead and use 8 inches. The more you go in, the more curvy it is at that part. So it depends on what you are trying to achieve and the design you are working with. So if your design is more curvy at that part, do well to go up by 8 inches, 7 inches, and connect it back to the other side of your sleeve. So now we are done drafting this sleeve on our lining. I'll go ahead now and cut it out. So to give this sleeve the needed structure, I'll be making use of gum stay. So I'm actually making use of the soft gum stay. It's not something too hard, but in this case I'll be using the gum stay on both the lining and the main fabric. So I'll be cutting out 4 of this shaped sleeve on the gum stay. That's 2 for the lining and 2 for the main fabric. So I also went ahead to cut out the sleeve on my main fabric. So I'm cutting the exact sleeve that I have on the lining. No addition, no subtraction. I'm cutting the exact. So I'll go ahead now to fuse my gum stay to my lining and main fabric, and this is what I have here. I've gone ahead to press the gum stay to the main fabric. This is the main fabric, and these are my lining piece. So you can see it now. So the next thing is I'll place the lining on the main fabric just like what you see on the screen, and then I'll go ahead and pin down the edges of the lining and the fabric together. So I'll pin them down together, and once this is done, I'll take it to the sewing machine and sew on that part, half an inch round the part which was pinned down. So go ahead, sew down the edges, the tip of the sleeve, and once you are done with that, ensure that you notch that part because it's a curve, and so you need to notch it for it to relax. Then flip it over to the other side and top stitch on your lining fabric, just exactly what you see me do here. Now that this is done, I'll then flip my sleeve together and take it to the ironing table and press. I'll give it a good press. So here is the two sleeves. It has been properly pressed. So the next thing I will do is I'll open up my sleeve. Yeah, I'll open it up now, and then I'll place the tip, that's one tip to the other. They must align at that point. So that's the first part I'm going to pin down, and I'll also pin it down lining to lining and fabric to fabric. Once I'm done pinning down those parts, I'll take it to the sewing machine, and then I'll run my stitch on it. So this is it after sewing down that part half an inch. So the next thing I will do now is to open it up and press. So go ahead, open up the seam line there and give it a good press. So I've done that, and you see it laying flat now that we have pressed that part. So the next thing now is turn my lining inside of the fabric. That's, I'll need to push them and match them together. So I'll go ahead and pull out my main fabric, and the lining will be inside of the fabric. And because we have already top stitched the lining already, there's no cause for alarm. We don't have any issue as regards the lining showing at the tip of the fabric. So we are covered. What we just need to do is to take it to the ironing table and give it a good press at that part again. So now I've pressed the tip of the sleeve, and this is what the two sleeves looks like. I also went ahead to overlock the edges of the sleeve. So here, what we need to do now is to take the measurements of our armhole. So at that point, I went ahead to take the measurements, and then I'll give it a marking there. So what I did was to pin down that part. Now if you have the armhole you are working with, just go ahead and measure the armhole on the dress you are working on, and whatever you have, ensure you take the measurements on your sleeve just the way I did now, and then mark that point. So we are going to pleat the sleeve. Okay, so now we are going to form a pleat from one end where our marking ended, where we pinned down when I took the measurement of the armhole. We are going to form a pleat on that side, from that point to the center of the sleeve, and from the other point to the center of the sleeve. So this is what you see me trying to do here. So I'm showing you, go ahead and form your pleat, and then once you've gotten the pleats that you want, you go ahead and secure the pleats at that point. Then take it to the sewing machine and then run your stitches on that point. So because this design is actually a two-in-one sleeve, so I'll go ahead now and cut the straight sleeve, that's the long sleeve that will be under, that will be inside of the gong sleeve. So what I did was to first take my long sleeve measurement, that's the length. I'll then place the pattern that we initially drafted, that we used for the gong sleeve. That's the same pattern I will place on the chantilly net that will be used. I'll pin it down. I will then take my wrist measurements at the wrist. I'll take my wrist measurement at that point and mark it, and then I'll connect my wrist measurements back to the sleeve, that's back to the pattern paper. I'll connect. So I also went ahead to add up half an inch seam allowance to the chantilly net. This is because of course the chantilly net is quite stretchy, so I just added half an inch at that point. And then also at the armhole area, that's the curved part of the pattern, I would also add half an inch to that part. And so I went ahead to cut out the straight sleeve for this sleeve design. So after cutting, this is what we have. So now I would sew up the sleeve, the long sleeve, and fix it beneath the gong sleeve, and this is the result at the end of the day. You can see the chantilly net underneath our gong sleeve, sitting pretty. Thank you all for watching today's tutorial. I'll see you all in my next video. Bye for now.